There we go. So again, welcome to everybody to this afternoon's Armchair Travel program. We are going to take a virtual visual trip to Japan with the help of Shelley Scott, our guest presenter this afternoon. My name is Paige. I'm from the Lethbridge Public Library. I'm the Teenbrarian, which means I do teen programs and collections for Lethbridge Public Library, which is all the fun stuff, basically. The Lethbridge Public Library is here on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains. So I want to make sure that we're paying respect to those Blackfoot people, past, present, and future. Part of this armchair travel program is part of a larger teen program here that we're doing all through 2021 called Read the World. So the idea is to read stories and explore places around the globe, and that includes right here for some of us, I think, where we are here in Southern Alberta. And stories are a great way to recognize and explore and respect other cultures and learn about ourselves and the people around us and how we all kind of fit together in this world. The city of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. So I'd like to take a moment to think of our place in the larger landscape and the larger community here in Lethbridge. Shelley is, oh, and my bio for you has closed. There we go. I'm gonna get my notes up again. Shelley is joining us as our presenter, like I said, about the country of Japan and travels through Japan. Shelley is a professor, she teaches drama at the University of Lethbridge. So if you have questions about drama or fine arts at the U of L, Shelley also, has some expertise in that area that she would be happy to share with you. She has done lots of traveling and on a more local scale, likes to walk around Henderson Lake and visit the Japanese garden here in Lethbridge, which are just lovely, natural, and very chill spots that maybe in a Saturday. So welcome, Shelley. I am very happy to have you, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us.
Thank you, Paige. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, I'm sort of okay. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, and speaking of Indigenous land acknowledgements, Japan has an Indigenous peoples as well, and they are called the Ainu. So although we're not in Japan, I thought that might be an important thing to mention as well, because land acknowledgements are super, super valuable. And so thank you so much for having me today, and this is really exciting. I have had a chance to go to Japan 2 times, actually. Well, actually sort of 3, but I'm only going to talk about the one time that I've been today, but feel free to ask me any questions about any of our trips. I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to show you. So just give me a second here and I'll bring up my shared screen. Okay, here we go. So can you see that? It should say in 2005 and 2012. Yep, perfect. Okay. So I made some little captions because I thought I would try to organize my talk around some topics because there's so much to talk about with Japan. Like what an amazing country and what an amazing experience that I got to have by being a professor there. So I went twice. My husband, Bill, who works at the public library, and I went to Japan twice in 2005 and in 2012. And in each of those cases, we spent 4 months living in the city of Sapporo, which is on the northernmost island. The island is called Hokkaido. And Japan is made up of a bunch of islands. So this is the one that's in the north. And what I was doing there is we have an exchange program between the University of Lethbridge and Hokkaido Gakuen University in Sapporo. So every year, back before the COVID times, we would have a professor that would go over to Japan and teach Canadian culture. And then we have a professor that comes from Japan to the University of Lethbridge and teaches Japanese culture. So it's a really amazing exchange program. And then there's also one that's for the students as well. So every year, a group of about maybe 15 students gets to go to Japan. And then a student group from Japan comes to Lethbridge. So it's been going on for like 30 years. It's a fantastic relationship that we have specifically with that university in Sapporo. So here's me. Now I should probably explain, this was a couple of years ago, so my hair color was different. I had bright red hair back then. That's me sitting on the sofa there. And to my left in the picture is the president of Hokkaigakuin University. And then on my other side, that's my husband, Bill. So that's us when we first got there to the university, and we were meeting the president and just kind of getting welcomed into the community there. And this is where we lived. They have this amazing house, a guest house in Sapporo that the professor gets to live in. And when we first arrived, it was right around this time of year. It was about April. So it was extremely cold and lots of snow. And there I am standing in front of the guest house. So the visiting professor from Lethbridge gets to live on the main floor. And then there's also a teacher from LCI, from Lethbridge Collegiate Institute, gets to stay on the upper floor and teach at the high school. So it's kind of fun to have somebody else from Canada staying in the room above you. This is inside the house. This is the tatami room. And tatami is the word for those beautiful mats that are on the floor. And as you can see, it's a little bit more of a traditional dining area. You're sitting on the floor, although they did give you some nice little backrest chairs and a table. And I don't know if you can tell, but in that room, you can actually move those walls, those sort of doors, to enclose it off into a separate room. And then this is the rest of the apartment. And it's not huge, but spaces in Japan tend to be quite a bit smaller. People live in smaller houses and apartments. They don't have like the giant 3-car garages like sometimes we have here in North America. But that was perfect for me and Bill, and we really enjoyed, and we're very comfortable in our little Sapporo guest house. Oh, and then this is the front door. And as you see, we've taken off our shoes, because this is another very important thing that we learned in Japan, is that you always take your shoes off before you come into somebody's home or any kind of a public space. And usually you're provided with some kind of slippers that you wear instead. So you step up into the other space and you make sure that you have the proper footwear to be polite in other people's homes. Another thing that I thought was super cool about Japan was how much people ride their bicycles. Of course, there's tons of cars and transit and subways and, you know, all the things that we're used to here, but people are also very cool about riding their bikes, which is a great thing environmentally and for exercise. So these are all the bicycles that are lined up outside of the university where I was teaching in Sapporo. You can see there's a lot of them. And here's another picture. Like this just blew me away, like how many people ride their bikes to university and have them all sort of like in this giant parking lot. Like we might have cars at the University of Lethbridge or maybe even outside of the high schools. But in Japan, people tend to ride their bikes a lot more, which I think is great. So here's some of the people that I was working with at the university. They were guys that worked in the office that helped me out with figuring out the photocopiers and the computers and all that kind of stuff. They were really helpful. And then here's my students. Some of them look sad. I hope they were having a bad day. Some of them look a little happy. I think they're just shy that I took a picture of them and that they're on camera. But this is what a classroom looked like at the university at Hokkaigakuin. And yeah, they were all like, you know, young adults, you know, like maybe around 18 to 20, is that kind of age range. And then here's some more of them. And you see, we're all doing that little peace sign thing. Hey, that's super popular whenever you have your picture taken in Japan. People love to do that little peace sign. It's kind of like just a cute thing that people like to do when they're having their picture taken. Okay, so I'm going to get to my favorite thing about Japan, and that was eating. I love Japanese food and all kinds of it. And so one of our favorite things to do when we were in Japan was to try the different restaurants. So we would go to sort of public places like this. This is one of the major parks that was in Sapporo. You can see it's kind of misty and rainy. But we would go and find restaurants that were in the downtown area. This is the City Hall. And this was one of the places that we love to go. So I can't know if you can tell on your screen, but that's a giant crab. that's on the side of the building. And this indicated that this was a restaurant that specialized in crab. And if I had a video, I could show you this crab's arms actually move all the time. It's actually like animated. So, you know, it really like entices you to come in and eat some crab at this cool restaurant. So here we are, that's me on the left there, that's my husband Bill again, and that's our friend Noriko. She's a hairdresser in Sapporo, and we got to know her through some of the other faculty members that introduced us. And she was great. She took us out to restaurants, and she did our hair, and we went to a Japanese baseball game with her. So it was really fun to actually make a Japanese friend and get to see things from her perspective. So this is a Japanese sushi restaurant, and sushi, of course, is very popular, but all kinds of other food is popular as well. Some of you might know that there's a restaurant here in Lethbridge called Sawa. It's on the west side, and they serve not sushi, but other kinds of really popular Japanese food like ramen, the ramen noodle soup, and also something called okonomiyaki, which is kind of like a pancake omelet sort of thing. So there's lots and lots of variety of Japanese food. It's not only just sushi. The other thing that we loved about Japan is that when you go to a restaurant, they have models, plastic models of the food outside of the restaurant. So you can see what the food is going to look like. And if you don't have very much Japanese language, like I don't, you can like bring your server out and just point at this plastic food and say, I want that one. So that was a really fun thing. This is an example. This is the plastic food. I know it looks real and it looks really delicious. This is actually just all made out of plastic to tell you how much it's going to cost you. The other thing that we learned was that if you see down in the corner there, it says 1,050. That was the price of this particular group of food. And what I would always do is just like kind of like drop off the last couple of digits. So basically this would cost you like about $10, although of course the exchange rate is not exact. So it was probably a little bit more than that. But that's sort of how I figured out the prices, is I would just go like, okay, that's about $10, which is a great deal for that amount of amazing food. And here's another one. Look at this. Isn't this cool? This is like some Western food in there too. So you could order some okonomiyaki kinds of things. There's like some wieners or some sausages. I don't eat meat, but I do eat fish. So I did great in Japan because they have a lot of amazing fish there. And then this is actually a fish market. This was one of the other things that we really enjoyed doing, was going to the fish markets, because that's where the fishermen would bring in their fresh catch, and then you could just buy it directly from these markets. And then they would also have like little restaurants inside the market, so you could sit down and eat that like extremely fresh, wonderful seafood. So another great way that we found to eat in Japan was to go to the various kinds of festivals and fairs that were going on. And it seemed like there was a lot. Like when we were in Sapporo, it seemed like there was all the time, there was like some festival or some kind of special event in the parks. Like if you think about here, like Whoop Up Days, something like that was kind of always going on. And so you could go to the fairs and the festivals, and they would always have this wonderful food available. And often they were at the shrines. The religion in Japan is primarily Buddhist, and they have Buddhist temples. But then they also have another religion that's called Shinto, and that would have these beautiful shrines that you could visit. And that's often where they would have these kinds of festivals. And sometimes the festivals would also include parades, because they would take some kind of religious objects from the shrine, and then they would kind of like parade them through the streets and then bring them back to the shrine. So that was something that we got to see quite a few times when we were in Sapporo. So that's me and my husband Bill, and we're standing in front of the Shinto shrine. And you could always tell that it was Shinto because of those kinds of symbols, the rope and the big sort of tassels that are hanging from it. Because what you would do is you would go up and you would ring the bell and clap, and kind of get the attention of the gods, the Shinto gods. And then you would, you know, make your wish or your prayer or something like that. So you could tell that that was a Shinto shrine. And then these are the kinds of festivals that they would have. So those big gates there that you see, that sort of wooden structure, that's called a torii, and it's the gate that leads into the shrine grounds. And then they would have these wonderful festivals that would take place. So you can see this really looks like a Whoop Up Days fairground kind of thing, right? There's wieners on a stick, and there's snow cones, and it's very colorful and fun. And they would sell these wonderful masks that you could buy and wear. So you can see that they have like different kinds of anime characters, and you could buy these plastic masks and wear them as part of the festivals. And they would have balloons and dress up and all kinds of fun things. And again, like lots and lots of food carts, lots of available treats that you could buy. And then these are some young women who are going to one of these festival events. And you can see that they're all dressed up in their beautiful traditional Japanese kimonos. It's springtime, and so they're celebrating by having these nice light colors. Not everybody wears them, of course, but people like to dress up, especially for these kinds of festivals and special events. And in this one, it was all about celebrating this mascot for the TV station. This was a mascot that was for radio and television, and he'd come out to kind of promote the TV shows, and so people were getting their pictures taken with this this fun mascot. Oh, and here we went to another festival. This was on the grounds of another one of the universities in Sapporo, and these were like the cool young guys who you know, were serving us some food there and wanted to get their pictures taken. And then, yeah, there was all kinds of booths from different countries. They had food from different areas that they were selling. And it was all like a big sort of a fundraiser for the university, but also it was kind of an intercultural, multicultural celebration. So that you could get food from different places, from Japan for sure. There was dance competitions going on in the streets. But this I wanted to sort of point out that, you know, I think that we sometimes don't realize that Japan, just like Canada, is a very multicultural country. And there's people who live in Japan from all over the world. And so these were some young students at the university who were from Malaysia, and they were selling Malaysian food at the festival. And they were very happy and proud to show off their Malaysian culture for us. Oh, and then this is another culture. These are the Harajuku girls. And as you can see, they have these amazing clothes that they wear. You probably maybe know this from, like, I don't know, maybe Gwen Stefani or something like that, right? They like to get dressed up in these kinds of kind of sort of goth kind of dresses, and they're holding little balloon rabbits. So yeah, just people like to, like, people in Japan, I found that they really like to dress up in different kinds of festival costumes, let's say. And then this was the parade that I was talking about. This is a shrine festival. So this would be just like the downtown streets of Sapporo. Again, I guess something like the Whoop Up Parade or the Calgary Stampede or the, I don't know, the Santa Claus Parade or something, right? But they're going through the streets of Sapporo. They're singing. They're playing musical instruments on this particular float. And you can see they're also doing some traditional Japanese dancing. So these, I don't know if you can see too clearly in this picture, but there's somebody playing the drum. There's a person in the back there playing the shamisen, which is like the little kind of like a little bit like a guitar. And then there's also somebody who's doing a dance performance. And there she's getting close up. And look at that gorgeous, gorgeous kimono and the beautiful makeup. And it's very traditional to celebrate that kind of more traditional Japanese culture as part of these festivals. And this is another thing that we went to. It was called Yasukoi. Yasukoi. It was like a dance festival. And yeah, lots and lots of opportunities to eat everywhere you go. So we also really enjoyed shopping. In Sapporo, there's an incredible number of huge department stores, and there's just miles of malls underneath all of the subway stations. So here's one of the outdoor malls that you could go to. And here's me again. I'm standing underneath the subway system. And I don't know if you can tell from this picture, but all along the whole subway, there's all of these stores. So there's a huge amount of shopping that you can do everywhere you go. Gigantic department stores, lots and lots of bright neon lights, and really, really sort of exciting to go downtown at night in Japan because there's so much neon and light and sound and music going on and huge crowds on the street. It's so different from Lethbridge, right? You go downtown in Lethbridge, like on a Saturday night, and there's nobody there. But in Japan, there's just people on the streets all the time. And we did do some traveling outside of Sapporo. We went to some small places on the island of Hokkaido, a little place called Otaru, and a city called Hakodate. And then we also got to go to some of the major cities, like Tokyo and Kyoto, that you may have heard of. This is Otaru, so it's really, really pretty. It's a little coastal town that's really well known for its seafood and also for its cute cat things. They have lots and lots of little shops where you can go in and buy, you know, jewelry and Japanese ceramics and crafts and that kind of thing. And these were the little cats outside welcoming us to the store. Japan loves cute things. Kawaii is the word for cute. And I really, really enjoyed that about Japan, is that there's so many cute things like this. This was a music box museum. And they had these little tiny cat statues that were all little music boxes, and they were all dressed up in costumes. Just like so cute and precious. This is Hakodate, which is another one of the coastal towns that we visited. So lots of sailing culture. And this was, you got to go up on, kind of like when you go to some place like Banff, you know, you can go up on that sky car to the top of the mountain and look back down. This was in Hakodate at nighttime, so we could look back down on the whole coastal community, and just thought it was really beautiful. Quite a big city, really. Not as big as Hokkaido. This is Kyoto. This is my other favorite city in Japan. And again, you can see lots of things are built around the river. These are all restaurants. So all of those kind of patios that you can see, those are all places that you can go and sit and eat and have some lunch or some dinner. And then on the other side of those restaurants, this is what you get. This is a kind of like a little narrow alley. So this is sort of like the front of the restaurant, and then you'd go through and then you'd be sitting on that patio or that kind of like little platform over the river. And this was obviously getting towards nighttime, but you see it's quite narrow. You couldn't get a car down there. That was just for walking and visiting the different restaurants. And you can see they have the lanterns outside to show you what the restaurant is and what kind of food they're serving. And lots and lots and lots and lots of restaurants, lots of variety that you can choose from. And this is just a picture of Kyoto from one of the temples that we visited. So I just wanted to give you sort of a sense of how big the city is, and also that, you know, that bird in the shot. So that's a pretty cool picture. And then the other thing that we tried to do a bit when we were in Japan was to do some sort of more traditional Japanese activities. So for example, we went to a little place called Josenkai, which is just outside of Sapporo, and we stayed at what's called a ryokan, which is a very traditional inn. So it's like a hotel, but it's like much more traditional. It tries to sort of recapture what it would have been like to live in Japan in you know, older times, into the 19th century and earlier even. So this is the entrance of the ryokan that we stayed at. And this is a path leading on the various walks that you can go to from the ryokan through this beautiful river gorge. And then this is the room. So this is how you would sleep. Those are called futons. You're probably familiar with those. And then you would roll them out on the tatami mats in the evening, and that would be the bed. So again, like a very traditional Japanese style of staying in that ryokan space. And you can see the traditional scroll. There's a flower arrangement, and then there's some like sort of modern things too, right? Like, so there's a cassette or a CD player and a telephone, right? So you've got a little bit of a mixture of the traditional and the new. We also really liked to participate in some of the more traditional art forms when we were in Japan, like ikebana, which is the flower arranging. And there's various kinds of traditional theater, which of course, because I'm in drama, that's something that I'm really interested in. We went and saw some no theater, and also sumo wrestling. We really, really enjoy sumo wrestling. Even today, I watch it on the computer on NHK Japan television. I always watch all the sumo wrestling tournaments because they're so fun. So this is, believe it or not, this is a Japanese flower arrangement called ikebana. And you can see that they're not afraid to mix the traditional with the more contemporary. So you have the flowers, but you've also got all this cool blue plastic tubing making up part of the arrangement. And here's another example. So it's a flower arrangement, but it's also got like some really kind of like wacky, different colored elements, some plastic balls in there. You know, so like again, like kind of really mixing the traditional with the contemporary. This is that no theater performance that I told you about. And again, this is another really good example of mixing traditional and contemporary, because traditionally, no theater would always only be done by men. But as you can probably see in this picture, this is a troupe of women doing the traditional Japanese no theater practice. So, you know, again, kind of mixing that new and old traditions. This is, we got to go to the high school in Sapporo and watch the young students practicing to become sumo wrestlers. So you can see it's got all the traditional elements of sumo. It's got the clay floor, it's got that rice bale circle, and then the whole point in sumo wrestling is that you basically try to force your opponent outside of that ring, or to pull them down so that part of their body touches the floor. So these are some young guys that are practicing their sumo to become hopefully professional wrestlers. And that was a real highlight of our trip because we love sumo so much. That was great. And then last but not least, we enjoyed both sort of the more natural beauty of Japan and then also some of the more popular culture elements. This is a beautiful park that was really close to where our guest house was. And it's just spectacularly beautiful Japanese garden landscaping, you know, something like what we see here if we go to the Japanese gardens at Henderson Park. This is in the springtime. You can see the cherry blossoms are on the tree, and that's a very, very popular thing to do in the spring, right around this time of year, like April and May. People would go and, you know, look at the cherry blossoms, and it's something that everybody looks forward to every year. And then the other thing that we loved about Japan, this is partly because, of course, we don't know the language, so we don't really know what this says, but we just loved the signs because they're just always so kind of cute and expressive and creative. So I'm guessing they're saying that, you know, don't come into this place because there's a guard dog, it'll chase you. And this one, I'm thinking it probably says like, be careful, don't fall in the lake. Because you know it's the bank is dangerous, right? And then this was fun. These are some posters that we saw of these Japanese girl bands that were releasing their album, and I particularly enjoyed their costumes, their clothing that they're wearing. I like the girl on the right with the shark on her head. That's pretty awesome. And then, yeah, like just another example of a fun sign to keep out of the pond. This one with a little bit of English on it, so we didn't, the English foreigners don't fall in the pond either. And then, yeah, and then of course, I don't know a ton about anime and manga, but that's a very, very popular art form, of course, in Japanese popular culture, and you saw that kind of stuff everywhere. And that's it. That's my whole little presentation about Japan.
Thank you so much, Shelley. It was really fun. I liked that you ended with the interesting but informational signage.
Yeah.
Fun trying to guess what some of those, the dog one especially, that one might have been.
Yeah, trying to guess what the signs mean. Absolutely. So does anybody have any questions? Anything they want to ask or tell me? Oh, thank you, Laura.
You can toss a question into the chat. If you have microphone capabilities, we're fine with you, just voicing your questions as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like Paige said, I teach drama at the university. So if any of you end up coming to the university at some point and take a drama class, maybe I'll get to actually meet you in person, which would be fun.
Yeah. Are any of you drama folks? Or other fine arts folks? Oh, Laura says they lived in Nagano Prefecture.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Hokkaido is interesting because in a lot of ways it's actually a lot more like Alberta than the rest of Japan because it's very oh yeah, that would be great to be able to travel again. Hokkaido's a lot more like Alberta because it's quite agricultural. Like a lot of people make their living as farmers. There's lots of corn, potatoes, and green onions is a big crop there. And when we got to go outside of Sapporo and into the countryside, like it's more like going to Canada. Like there's mountains. People really like to ski. There's lakes and it's not sort of maybe the more traditional Japan that we kind of maybe think of with like the big massive cities with Tokyo or the more sort of traditional older city centers like Kyoto that has a lot of temples. Yeah, Hokkaido's a little bit more rural, I guess, more sort of agricultural. Yeah, so there's lots of variety there.
How big of a city is it? Do you know like approximate population? Or?
Oh, like it's probably about the size of maybe Edmonton. It's certainly way bigger than Lethbridge. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else questions for Shelley while she's here? Brandon, do you have a question?
What is it? Japan has sumo?
Is that something you're interested in?
Just looking on it. Look that up on Wikipedia.
It's a very cool sport.
Yeah, it's really cool. The like I was saying, it's they do a tournament every second month. So in fact, there's one going on right now, the March tournament. So it's like January, March, July, and so on. And so they do it for 2 weeks. And it's every day, and so they match up the two rikishi, they're called the wrestlers, and then they go kind of head to head in the ring. And what I love about it is that there's so much ritual around it. Like it comes out of that same Shinto religious tradition. So there's lots of like, they do a lot of bowing and a lot of like sort of ritual dance and throwing the salt into the ring to purify it. And then they have the actual matchup between the two guys. And yeah, no, I mean, I'm not a big sports person, but sumo is cool.
Any other questions?
That's all it is.
Excellent. Well, thank you to everybody for coming to this session this afternoon. If you enjoyed this one, we actually have another presentation centered on Japan that'll be happening at the end of May. I can't remember if I have the tickets up for that yet on Eventbrite, but if not, they will be up at the start of April. Those will be up. So this presentation was from Shelley, who is a university professor and traveler in Japan. The May session is going to be from a person who is teaching English to elementary school kids in Japan. She's Canadian and she's doing a teacher, the JET program, Japanese English teaching program, I think is JET. And so she's going to talk to us about that. And she is living in a much more rural part of Japan. So right on the seaside in a very small village. So it'll be another different take and experience of.
Do you remember what her name is?
Michelle Boivin-Carrière.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
That
Michelle's
sounds
going to
great.
talk to us at the end of May. Next month, at the end of April, Heather, who works at the library, is going to come and talk. Well, she's going to show up on our screens and talk to us about being a sailor on a tall ship. So she spent a few months sailing on, if you picture, you know, like a classic movie historical sailing ship or pirate ship.
Yeah.
She spent a couple, I think a couple months sailing around the Pacific on one of those ships, and she's going to talk about what that is like, being on the ocean on a giant sailing ship. So if you're interested in that, that's the end of April. End of May is another trip to Japan. And again, all of this is part of the teen program at Lethbridge Public Library that is called Read the World. If you're interested in finding out more information about that, you can go to lethlib.ca, L-E-T-H-L-I-B. Let me just put that in the chat here. And if you go to the teen section of the website, you'll be able to find out more about the Read the World program. And the idea behind that is that before the end of December 2021, you read a book set in each continent of the world. So if Shelley's presentation on Japan has kind of twigged your interest, there are some book lists up, and you hopefully can find a cool book about Japan and then check off that page in your passport.
Cool. Thank you so much for inviting me, Paige, and thanks to everybody for being here. It brought back so many fun memories of being in Japan. I'd love to be able to go back again. I hope we all get to travel lots more in the world. And in the meantime, I guess we just get to read about it.
Yes, and plan things.
Yeah.
It's the fun,
Yeah.
you know, imagining stage of traveling.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you again to everybody. And I hope to see you in further months for more of our sessions.
Sayonara, Paige.
Sayonara. Daimata. I mean, see you later.
And Shelley, I'll just have you hang around for a moment if you don't mind.
Not at all.
There we go. I can just bump
There
them
we
all
go.
back to the waiting room. Excellent. Thank you again. That was wonderful. I loved all of the festival pictures. Looked so much fun.
It was hard to narrow them down. Honestly, we had tons and tons of pictures. And that was just from the 2012 trip, because we were there in 2005 as well. And then we were very briefly there last year. We were back from Australia, and we stopped in Japan for just a short period of time. But then, of course, there was the COVID, so we had to get home really quick, right? So that was that didn't, wasn't the best.
No, that's crappy.
Yeah.
Were you able to connect with people from previous trips when you went?
The 2005 and the 2012 one, yeah, we definitely did. This most recent one, we were down in Kyoto, so we didn't get a chance to get in touch with anybody from back up in Sapporo. But yeah, no, it was great to be able to actually make some relationships with people in the community.
Yeah. A friend of my dad has he's a teacher and had been at LCI, Howard Rasmussen.
Okay, yeah, I know that name.
Overlapped at all, but yeah, I'm wondering, when you said LCI, they have a teacher staying up there. I'm wondering if that's the house that he ended up staying.
I'm sure it was, and I have heard that name, so I suspect I've probably actually met him at some point, because they did have a really great exchange program with the high school. Now, I think that isn't going on anymore, even before the COVID. I think that might have discontinued, which is really unfortunate.
It's sad to see things like that disappear. Yeah.
No, I know they're so valuable, and I'm glad to see that the university is still continuing with our relationship with Saskatchewan.
Yes. And I hosted a student through one of the university student exchanges a few summers ago, like when they come from one of the girls' universities, and I cannot remember which one.
There's a bunch actually. Like when it was all up and running, there was a few different versions of that exchange going on. Yeah, some of them different times of year, different periods of time. Yeah,
she was here. I think it was for about 4 or 5 weeks, August into the start of September.
Oh yeah,
which was really cool.
Yeah.
I figured, I have the space. She might as well come. But I think she was a little lost because I was on my own in my house. I wasn't married at that time, so it was just me. And I was working at that point 2 evenings a week. So there would be nights when I'm like, supper's in the fridge, bye. And hopefully she, coped okay. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's important too, right? Because some
yeah.
of it is just seeing how people live, right? And people have
Mhm.
different lifestyles.
Yeah, and it was her first time away from, her family home as well, I think. So it was
Yeah.
a big thing. But I taught her how to make pizza, so I think we're square.
Your job is done.
She invited, originally I was like, well, you can have a couple of, your friends from the group over. That'll be fine. We'll make pizza. It'll be good. And so we were going to make, just little, oh yay big sort of individual pizzas so they could each do their own. I think I ended up with 12 giggling 18, 19-year-old Japanese girls in my house.
Oh my goodness, what fun.
So fun. And I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. They probably had a blast. Good for you.
So fun. But yes, thank you so much. Oh, the other person I was going to mention, my friend Lauren Jerky is a theater person. And I was like,
yes,
classes with Shelley. And she said, yes,
she
and she said, say hi. So Lauren says
how wonderful. That's fantastic. How do you know Lauren?
Our parents were friends, so we grew up together.
Oh, isn't that amazing? Yeah. She's in Victoria now, right?
She is, yeah. She's just, I think she done, I can never remember if she's just finished or finishing her PhD. I think she's finishing her PhD still.
No, gosh, Lauren was like one of our superstars.
She's done such cool stuff. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So excellent. Well, thank you again. And tune into the May one if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely. I'll mention to Bill that he should get me that.
I can never remember where it is. Michelle, I think, is really far north and right on the seashore. She has the most beautiful sunset photos from this town where she is. So
wow, that sounds great.
Somewhere beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, well, good for you. What a great program that you're running. Good for you.
It's been fun. Small but fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again, and have a great weekend, Shelley. Say hi to Bill for me.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.